We take you live now to Terrace, BC, where Prime Minister Mark Carney is announcing the next wave of major projects for review.
Thank you very much, Mayor Boytash. Good morning. Bonjour. Bonjour tout le monde. It is a great pleasure to be here in beautiful BC, beautiful Terrace this morning, to be joined as well by Minister Robertson and to be joined by the CEO of the Major Projects Office, Dawn Farrell. I'd like to acknowledge the representatives of the Gitxaalath First Nation, the Kitsukalam First Nations, and recognize that we are here on the traditional territory of the Tsimshian people. I'd like to acknowledge other representatives of other First Nations communities who've gathered with us today and whom we honor. The reason for this meeting is to announce the second group, the second tranche of major projects that will be referred to what's known as the Major Projects Office. Let me talk a bit about those projects and what they're here for. They're here to reinforce our nation. They are part of nation-building strategies to transform our economies, but to build all nations, to build Canada and to build First Nations. They are strategies that will make our country more independent, more inclusive, more sustainable, and yes, more prosperous. Parce que nous sommes dans une situation
because we're in a
où le monde
situation where
évolue rapidement.
the world is
Les changements
evolving
technologiques
rapidly.
s'accélèrent. La
Changes
transition
are
axée sur
accelerating.
l'énergie verte
Transition
gagne
on
rapidement de terrain.
green energy is
Transforme
gaining
le
a lot
monde
of
mondial en
ground,
ressources.
is transforming the world's
Et les
demand in
États-Unis
resources. The
ont
U.S.
fondamentalement changé leur approche au
have
commerce,
fundamentally
ce qui
changed
menace
their approach
les
to
emplois
and
dans les entreprises canadiennes
threatens jobs and
dans un
Canadian
climat
businesses
d'incertitude.
in a climate
We're
of
in a
uncertainty.
situation because of all these changes in the world that many of our historic strengths, based on close ties with the United States, have become our vulnerabilities. We just released a budget last week. And in that budget, we estimate that the U.S. tariffs and the associated uncertainty that they're causing will cost the Canadian people about 1.8% of our GDP. Now, let me translate that into real numbers. That's about $50 billion lost from our economy. It's the equivalent of $1,300 for every woman, man, and child in this country. That's because the world, U.S., is changing rapidly. And so we must change our strategy dramatically. And we're doing that by drawing on our legacy as builders, a legacy forged for long by the people of British Columbia. Throughout our history, Canadians have built major projects that define our landscape and underwrite our prosperity. Projects like the railway that united the Maritimes around the time of Confederation. Projects like the Canadian Pacific Railway that helped bring British Columbia into Confederation. The Trans-Canada Highway that linked our nation. The St. Lawrence Seaway that has opened up new markets in the East for over $1 trillion of cargo and counting. We used to build in this country, and we are building our nation again. One of the first things that Canada's new government did was to pass something called the Building Canada Act. That was back in June. And this law changes the government's approach to building major projects from why to how. Those projects are projects that strengthen Canada's autonomy, our independence, strengthen our resilience, strengthen our security. They're projects that provide major economic benefits to Canadians, ones that have a high likelihood of success. Crucially, they are projects that advance the interests of Indigenous peoples. And they have to be projects that contribute to sustainable, clean growth. And the Major Projects Office is helping to build Canada smarter and quicker, fast-tracking infrastructure that we need to unlock our country's immense resources and potential. And in this way, we'll build our communities, grow new businesses, and create tens of thousands of new careers in sustainable industries. Back in September, in Edmonton. We referred projects that represent more than $60 billion in investment. And today, we're going to announce some projects that will double that impact. The budget that I referenced a moment ago, the budget of last week, reinforces our mission to build Canada strong. It's our plan so that Canadians take full control of our future. It's a plan to move from over-reliance on one trading partner, the United States, to resilience to global shocks. It's a plan to replace uncertainty with prosperity. Nous prenons notre avenir en main en bâtissant une seule
We are
économie
taking
canadienne.
charge of our future by building a solid Canadian economy that will be propelled by new infrastructure in order to link our regions, diversify our markets, bring back affordable housing, and protect our communities.
Au cours des 5 prochaines années,
Over the next 5 years, we will realize $1,000 billion in investment.
Le total de cet
Alone,
investissement suffira
this
à augmenter
investment
notre
will
PIB de plus de
increase
3,5%, soit
our GDP
$3,500 par
by
chaque travailleur canadien. In other
$3,500
words,
for
these
each
projects
Canadian
that we're
worker.
catalyzing $1 trillion of investment in total over the next 5 years. That's $3,500 for every Canadian worker, twice what the Americans are taking away. Each of the projects that we're referring to the Major Projects Office today, in and of itself, is transformational. But the bigger point is that their impacts will be amplified by being part of bigger national strategies to boost Canada's competitiveness, including to realize our country's full potential as an energy superpower, by creating new trade and economic corridors that diversify our economy, projects that help build Canada's leadership in critical minerals to increase our independence, and also projects that we won't discuss today, but projects that establish our data sovereignty so Canadians can be served safely and securely online. Now, Canada, let me start with our position as an energy superpower. We're starting to realize our full potential in both conventional, i.e. oil and gas, and clean energies. LNG is an essential fuel for the energy transition. LNG can help Canada build new trading relationships, especially in fast-growing markets in Asia. By 2040, it's estimated that global LNG demand will rise by 60%, and Canada will be ready. We're home to the world's 4th largest reserves of natural gas, and we have the potential to supply up to 100 million tons annually of new LNG exports to Asia. But that will require major investment across a wide range of infrastructure. And to encourage that investment, the budget provides new tax incentives to encourage the world's lowest carbon, I'll repeat, the world's lowest carbon LNG facilities. And the budget also expands the Canadian Infrastructure Bank's ability to support projects like Xylism's LNG. Xylism comprises a new gas pipeline, a new electricity transmission line, and a new floating LNG export facility. Led by the Nisga'a Nation under President Ava Clayton, Xylism's will become Canada's second largest LNG facility with a capacity to export 12 million tons of LNG every year to new markets. It'll also be one of the world's cleanest LNG operations, with emissions an incredible 94% below the global average, and with the potential to reach net zero by the end of this decade, all while creating thousands of skilled careers and $4 billion contributions annually to our GDP. The federal government has been working closely with the province of British Columbia in the development of this project, most notably through a one project, one review environmental assessment process and associated consultations led by the province. In addition to consulting on the financing of Xylism, the Major Project Office will also help coordinate timely approvals of all 3 elements of the project and the related transmission infrastructure that I'll discuss in a moment. Now, more broadly, taking a step back from LNG. Core to becoming an energy superpower will be to fully capitalize on Canada's advantage in clean energy by substantially expanding our clean electricity grid. Over 80% of the electric power we produce in the country, it's higher obviously in British Columbia, but in the country as a whole, is clean. The point is, clean electrification is the path. It's the only path to building a sustainable, prosperous economy. D'ici 2050, nos besoins en électricité
our needs in electricity might triple due to economic growth and increase in demand for clean transportation, green manufacturing, and data centers. And to respond to this need, we will require greater hydroelectric, wind, solar, and nuclear energy sources, and we will need new connections between provincial systems to create an efficient, robust, durable Canadian electric network.
Enormous economic opportunities by connecting and creating a sustainable grid, including right here in northern British Columbia. So our government is launching a transformational strategy to develop that clean energy, including through new investment tax credits for clean electricity, through something we just introduced in the budget called the Productivity Super Deduction, which provides for immediate expensing of clean electricity generation and conservation equipment. The Canadian Infrastructure Bank plans to invest $10 billion in clean power projects, and there will be federal support for provincial transmission links. We also see that nuclear power will play an important role in scaling clean generation. And the Minister of Natural Resources will lead our new nuclear strategy, working with the provinces, including the Government of Ontario, to deploy small modular reactors and tens of gigawatts of new utility-scale nuclear capacity. Canada, of course you know this in BC, Canada has a long tradition of using hydropower to unlock economic activity. That's true here, it's true in Quebec with Hydro-Quebec, it's true even in my home province of Alberta with the Brazeau Dam, which was the start of our industrial development. In that spirit, today we're referring the Iqaluit Nuqiqsutit hydro project to the Major Projects Office. This is a breakthrough. This is a breakthrough for Arctic sovereignty and sustainability. It will be a 100% Inuit-owned hydro energy project. It will save $1.9 billion in diesel costs over the next 50 years while providing affordable, reliable, emissions-free power in the Arctic. Now that's elements of the energy superpower strategy. The second strategy is to develop new trade and economic corridors that help us diversify our markets and build our independence. And this is the potential of the Northwest Critical Conservation Corridor that we're also referring today to the Major Projects Office. The Northwest Corridor has extraordinary potential to unlock critical minerals development, clean power transmission, all under Indigenous leadership. We're talking tens of billions of dollars of investments, and in parallel, creating a new conservation area the size of Greece. The corridor involves building new transmission lines, upgrading highways, installing fiber and cell towers, and investing in communities, ports, and railways. By doing so, we'll strengthen our position as a global leader in clean energy and a leader in critical minerals. Now, what's crucial for this is the North Coast transmission line, one of the reasons we're here at BC Hydro. It's required to unlock this potential. And to help get it going, the Canada Infrastructure Bank is today announcing a loan of $140 million to BC Hydro. The North Coast transmission line will enable transformative industrial projects, including silicium, LNG, as well as multiple critical minerals developments in the Golden Triangle. The transmission line alone has the potential to create $10 billion in new economic activity in this area, while reducing emissions by up to 3 million tons annually. But more broadly, the Northwest Transmission Line will anchor clean energy industrial corridor for generations. And it has the potential to be connected with the Yukon through the Yukon-BC Grid Connect that will increase the Yukon's energy security and affordability, as well as there's the potential for an interconnect with Alberta to optimize reliability and sustainability in that province. Now, with respect to critical minerals, by 2050, global demand for those minerals is expected to increase fivefold, 5 times. The problem is, at present, the supply of those resources is highly concentrated in one country, and it's very risky. What the world wants is Canada to be the reliable supplier of critical minerals as the world moves to building a more sustainable economy. We're already amongst the top 5 global producers for 10 different critical minerals, and we hold rich geological endowment of all 34. But unlocking these resources through projects in the Ring of Fire in Ontario, La Fosse de Labrador in Quebec and Labrador, and right here, or almost right here, in the Golden Triangle in northern BC, this will attract hundreds of billions of dollars in new investment and create thousands of high-paying, not just jobs, careers, thousands of high-paying careers for miners, carpenters, engineers, and beyond across this country. The federal government is committed that these opportunities are realized in full partnership, including with equity ownership with First Nations communities. The Ring of Fire alone, give an example, in Ontario, has the potential to add over $22 billion to Canada's GDP over 30 years, while advancing growth in partnership with local Indigenous communities. So we put together a critical minerals strategy that will encourage exploration, accelerate project development, support essential infrastructure from the first mile to the mines and the processing facilities to new trade corridors and ports that open up global markets. Our strategy will support clean power development, as we see here, while providing greater price certainty and competitive financing to the developers to encourage the long-term investments that we need and the world needs. La semaine passée, the Minister
of Natural Resources announced 26 new investments, partnerships, and measures aiming to implement critical mineral projects. So the $2.6 billion, which free development and export standards in the Ring of Fire, and the government of Canada and Ontario are talking right now to accelerate these measures.
The budget makes major investments to critical minerals projects, including a $2 billion critical minerals sovereign fund for those projects and a $1.5 billion first and last mile fund for related infrastructure, as well as expanded tax credits for investments. So here in the Golden Triangle, you can see where those applications would come once we build the transmission. In this context, we're referring to the Major Projects Office, Canada Nickel's Crawford project in Ontario, the Nouveau Monde Graphite Matawini mine in Quebec, and the Northcliffe Resources Sisson mine in New Brunswick. To say a few words about each. Crawford will anchor Canada's global leadership in clean industrial materials. It is situated in the world's second largest nickel reserve. It'll produce high-quality, low-carbon nickel, essential for batteries and green steel. Its projected emissions are 90% below the global average, and it has the potential for a net negative carbon footprint. Crawford will set the global standard for the future of responsible mining. The Sisson mine in New Brunswick will produce tungsten, the strongest metal in the world. and it'll position Canada as a reliable supplier for steel manufacturing, defense, and protective equipment. Et enfin, la mine Matawini de Nouveau Monde Graphite va transformer les chaînes mondiales d'approvisionnement.
Will transform the world's supply chain in batteries, and this project will be integrated in the battery plant in Bécancour to produce sulfur graphite used in electrical vehicles and energy storage systems, and all of this will be entirely fed by clean hydroelectric electricity. This project will reduce carbon producers, reinforce Canada's supply system, and continue toward the acceleration to the energy transformation, and attract billions of dollars in investment.
Now, I've talked a lot about building and specifics of what we're going to build together. But today is not just about what we build, it's also about how we build. We're building sustainably, in each case reducing emissions and investing in a clean energy future. Our energy and critical minerals projects are amongst the lowest carbon in the world. And moreover, they unlock major investments in sustainable growth for generations to come. Secondly, we're building in solidarity with Canadian workers, creating hundreds of thousands of high-paying union jobs. And we are always building in partnership with Indigenous peoples to ensure meaningful Indigenous ownership and major economic benefits, while promoting the conservation of our natural heritage for future generations. This approach reinforces that the impacts of our nation-building strategies, just like those that came before us, that these impacts will be generational. Consider my earlier reference to that railway in the Maritimes. It was built around the time of Confederation to move goods and troops there, to assert Canada's independence and help unite a young country. But that line eventually became part of the Canadian National Railway, which now spans more than 31,000 kilometers across this vast land, reaching here to Terrace and from Terrace to the world. That line moves $250 billion of cargo each year and employs nearly 25,000 Canadians. Its infrastructure is old as our nation itself, and it drives this huge economic activity across the country, employing tens of thousands of Canadians and uniting our nation. That's the power of nation-building projects. Projects that Canadians have built before, and projects that we are starting together to build again. Building Terrace strong, building BC strong, building Canada strong. Thank you very much.